We're at mile marker 75 right behind me, and as you can see, this is US 1. It is closed. You have the Islamorada Fire Department that has blocked both lanes because this is certainly not an area that anybody wants to take their vehicles over. Now, we have a vehicle over here that is surveying the area. I'm trying to get a little fix here on this particular, Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission driving through, but you can see it's something you don't want to drive through. If I point out some of these things, you get a better idea. You have a lot of coconuts, you have pieces of wood like right here, and here's a hot commodity, sponge. This is the natural sea sponge that I'm holding up, and this is just strewn about all over the place. And this stuff is pretty expensive, like $3 or $4 for something like that. You just see thousands of them all over the area. Now, the wind has kind of died down for the time being, but we have seen some serious rain out here, deluge, and a lot of strong wind coming through. I estimate it was about 30 to 40 miles an hour. I'm pretty good at estimating wind speeds through this area. So now, at this point, the weather is still not good, and it's something that you want to heed warning to. This is, of course, all under a mandatory evacuation here in the Lower Keys. So this means up until about Islamorada and mile marker 75, you can't get through. You can't get down to the Lower Keys. So that's basically cut off from civilization. You can see the storm surge caused all this mess out here. The waves are still crashing, but look at it. It's basically Hurricane Rita is trying to create a sandy beach right here on US 1, and you can see what I'm holding right here. This is the sand coming in right here from the ocean, but it has caused a lot of problems for people out here. Now, I talked to the Florida Department of Transportation official who was just coming by here about 10 minutes ago. I said, well, what do you plan to do with this debris field, which really spans about a third of a mile, almost a half of a mile to the south of where I'm standing? He says that they are now getting contractors to come out here. They're going to take the bulldozers and the backhoes, and they're going to go and start pushing all this stuff away so at least that they can get emergency vehicles coming back and forth so they can have better access down to the Lower Keys. That's pretty much the story right now. Again, we're coming into intermittent periods of heavy rain and a lot of wind. It has died down for the time being, but if you look over here, we'll swing over here before we leave you. You can see where a lot of that water ended up. These are all condos. People have evacuated the condos, and it's just created a lot of standing water. So for the time being, we have to deal with this debris field, but they plan in the next hour or two to get the heavy equipment in and then bulldoze or push all this debris away. Reporting live out here, Lower Macomb Key, Art Barron, CBS 4 News. All right, Art. The National Guard is poised up in Florida City right now to send a special unit down the length of US 1 on the overseas highway to check to make sure that road is going to be passable after the winds of the storm die down. The concern is that the water may have washed out some of the supporting soil underneath the approaches to the bridges. So the National Guard is going to be checking that and making sure that road's up to par before they allow any of the convoy trucks or relief efforts or emergency vehicles to go down there.
And speaking of the relief efforts, we have crews from Palm Beach County that are already headed down into the Monroe County area. They'll be stopping short of the Monroe County area until it's safe to go down there and bring the folks water and ice and that sort of thing. So even before the storm passes through, the relief effort is already rolling. Yeah, the governor set up everything early here. Let's go to Joy Purdy. She's standing by in the newsroom with some pictures from Islamorada.
That's right, Rob, Maggie. We got this video in, first some pieces of video to show you, give you a good look at the status of the flooding at Islamorada. This new video is of firefighters wading through the water. They are checking mobile homes door to door. Not sure at this point if they were called to this area or if they're checking on their own, but you know that mobile homes, the first to receive that mandatory evacuation there in the Keys. The second piece of video, brand new, is a man in the water in Islamorada. You can see how high the water is there. The flooding getting up to his knees, and folks, obviously not a good thing to do at this point. You don't know what's in that water, glass, snakes, maybe even a sinkhole that might have formed, and a reminder of the people who were killed when Katrina came through our area, wanting to go outside just to see what was going on during the worst of the storm, and state officials, local officials telling everyone to stay inside. This last piece of video is of the flooding itself. it's just seeping into homes in this area. So you can just imagine these folks, what they had to go back to, the water contaminating everything inside at least the ground floor of their home. You really can't even tell where the property line starts were it not for the trees there. So we're keeping an eye on that situation with our reporters there as well. We also have been getting pictures, snapshots in from many of our viewers. This one from Amanda Mott there in Isla Mirada, a lot of the same. You can see from wherever she is, you can't tell except for the pier there and the trees where the property line ends and the Atlantic begins. This picture, another picture, it looks like Amanda Mott was able to get a different angle here. But folks, if it is not safe, you know, the officials are telling you to stay indoors until the worst of the storm has passed. So a lot of these pictures are coming to us during lulls in the storm. Gary McConnell sending this to us from Miami. Storm damage here. His car, he'll be needing that for insurance purposes, no doubt. The glass broken. Nancy Seafried, I believe that's how you say her name, Matacumbe Key, and this is where we have been visiting several of our reporters where the waters have just flooded over top of US 1 and other roads, making it impassable there in many areas. Some of those streets being totally shut down, as US 1 has been near mile marker 75. And here, another angle from Nancy. We also have a couple more pictures to show you. Nancy was able to give us quite a few pictures here, and the situation not looking good at all. And it looks like she may have been taking this from a boat. But folks, if you do have pictures, this is the website to go to, our website. God bless you. CBS4News.com. You can click on Pics4 at CBS4.com. But please make sure the storm is already passed. Make sure the situation is safe. We wouldn't want you to go out there and put yourselves in danger just to get pictures. The damage won't be going anywhere. There will be plenty of damage even when the water recedes. That's the very latest from the newsroom. Joy Purdy, CBS 4 News.
Joy, thank you. It is just past 2:30, and we know that you expect an update at the bottom of every hour. So to recap for you where we stand right now as far as warnings, Miami-Dade and Broward County are now under tropical storm warnings, and the Keys, of course, still under hurricane warning.
Time to check in with Brian Norcross in Weather Control. We're also under a tornado warning, are we not, Brian?
We have a tornado warning for Broward and a tornado warning for the Keys. Let's update those first. Here's the close-up view with real-time radar of the Broward situation. Now, the cell that apparently produced the tornado has moved by, but this is part of that same line, and it extends from the airport. There's the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport right there at the end of 595, and northwest across the county up to near the Sawgrass Mills Mall. So this is north of the 595 corridor. Very strong storms with very gusty winds at Fort Lauderdale Hollywood. The winds gusted up in the high 40s not long ago, and so that is the kind of wind being produced, and that kind of wind can take down trees and knock out power and so forth. So it does extend down to about Davie Boulevard and north up to about Oakland, maybe even a little further than that over on the Sawgrass Expressway. There you see pictures in the corner of your screen from Haulover Beach. Now on the wider view, a reminder what a tornado warning means for you. It means you should stay indoors on the lowest level of your building, away from the windows, until the storm has passed. You can see that that cell is pretty much confined to that area. Downstream, there are other cells here that will come in, but they are not bright red like that on the radar. Now, the other tornado warning we have had in effect, and is still in effect for another few minutes, down here between Key Largo and Alamorada in the Plantation Key area. And what happened there was the radar sighted rotation in the cloud offshore, moving in the direction of the lower Keys in this band. So exactly where it is, whether it's that cell that's just now crossing the Keys or these up here that have already crossed, we're not sure. But you need to be aware again in that area to stay indoors, away from the windows, until these cells have moved on over into Florida Bay and away from the Keys. But clearly, that's a very strong cell in any case, just to the south of Key Largo right now, moving on over the overseas highway, so beware there. Now, on the wider view, where we can see what's going on with the hurricane now, the increasingly strong hurricane, here's where it was about 3 hours ago, and it was down to the south of Marathon. Now, watch as we go through time here, and it moves off on this essentially due west direction, and the eye wall here is down in here and is quite strong looking on the south side. But the main thing is that the direction of the push of the water now is pushing the water from the south toward the lower Keys. So the storm surge that we're going to get is now underway. It's been underway for a while, I would imagine, in the lower Keys. But with the increasingly strong hurricane and the fact that it's oriented itself now so that the push from the water, which of course is generally from the south all through this area here, all along the Keys, a general south or southeast push, that is going to keep the storm surge flooding going. The only thing that's going on good here in terms of storm surge is that the tide is going down. The tide was high about 11:30 this morning. It'll be low at 5:30 this afternoon. So we're right at mid-tide now. So in spite of the fact the tide is going out, the storm surge is pushing water in. So that combination of effects is happening, but still the National Weather Service thinking that the storm surge in the lower Keys as this hurricane passes by, because the lower Keys are the closest to the center of the storm of any of the Keys. So the storm surge would be the highest the closer you are to the center of the storm, and they're predicting the 4 to 6 foot storm surge there in the extreme lower Keys. All right, if you didn't get the numbers, the new numbers as of the top of the hour, here they are. The winds up to 100 miles an hour, moving to the west at 15. The pressure has dropped to 976 millibars. That's a significant drop since this morning, and that latest pressure recorded by the hurricane hunters out there investigating the storm now. Category 2 hurricane, about 50 miles, just about due south of Key West now, moving on by pretty quickly, but it's a pretty big storm. It's going to take a while, even as it heads on off into the Gulf of Mexico. We're still going to have effects from it, especially in the Keys tonight, and then diminishing effects through the day tomorrow. And now new information coming in from the computer models that forecast intensity, that this could be a very, very strong storm in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, much like Hurricane Katrina was. Although it does look like that this future track is taking this west of the Hurricane Katrina landfall point, and folks in Texas are already getting very, very nervous about the storm. There are the warnings and watches. The tropical storm warning continuing for Palm Beach County down through Miami-Dade County, including Broward. Hurricane warning. Did I say watch? A tropical storm warning for the southeast coast, hurricane warning for the Keys and part of the west coast by the Everglades National Park, and then the tropical storm warning on up the west coast, on up to just about the Port Charlotte area. So that's where we stand with the storm. Now let's check in with David Bernard.
All right, thank you, Brian. And we're going to start off by taking a look now at the wide satellite picture. And just kind of give you a perspective, this hurricane not only is growing in intensity, but growing in size as it continues to spread out and grow. As this moves into the Gulf of Mexico the next couple of days, it's probably, again, going to be one of these storms that's going to take up a lot of real estate. But I point your attention to, we have this feeder band that's causing a lot of the problems up in Broward County, and there's more back across Andros Island. So even as the storm is pulling away to the west, we still have quite a bit of weather that is expected to come into the area. Here's a wide look at the radar, and again, those severe storms that are producing the possible tornadoes across Broward County are here. Then the other most intense line right now is that one that's across the upper Keys, where the tornado warning's in effect also. Notice how that extends well down to the south and east. So still plenty of weather over the Atlantic. Off and on gusty squalls are going to continue, it looks like, based on this radar picture, into the evening hours. Here's a look at the latest wind speeds across South Florida. 36 miles per hour at West Kendall, and they've had some wind gusts much higher than that earlier today, but they've come down a bit recently. And the Fort Lauderdale port sustained wind is at 24 miles per hour. However, when we look at, well, we'll look at the Keys first of all, 43 miles per hour at Key West. When we look at the wind gust right now, that will tell you that at the Fort Lauderdale airport it's 32, but recently they had a wind gust of 48 miles per hour when some of those bad storms possibly producing those tornadoes were going by Hollywood. They gusted as high as 48, and right now the wind gust at West Kendall is currently 46. At the Miami International Airport, it's 37 miles per hour. Down into the Keys right now, the wind gust 59 miles per hour. Key West, that's been pretty consistent for the third hour now, where they've had wind gusts in the upper 50s and lower 60s. That aspect has not changed. So we want to take you through the forecast. Dangerous wind and rain continuing for the remainder of today, easing up a bit for tonight. Tomorrow, still gusty with storms likely, but improving conditions. But because the hurricane's going to be even stronger and pulling away to our west, that's still going to keep the winds up. And even into the end of the week, we're likely to still see somewhat breezy conditions, but obviously we'll be back to just having a few storms for late week as we have a more typical summertime pattern setting up across the area. Gusty squalls, heaviest south, but you know, we're seeing this action in Broward right now, so really the entire area has the potential to see some intense squalls the remainder of today. Stormy at times still tonight with periods of showers. Winds will slowly be diminishing, and as we look ahead into the weekend, again, getting back to a more typical pattern. That will be some good news to get this storm out of here, but still calling it stormy at times on Wednesday with just a few storms, it looks like, for Saturday and Sunday. Rob and Maggie.
Thank you very much, David. We want to take you back down to Key West now. Every time we've tried to bring you a live report, we've had to break away for breaking. Sorry, my mic has been off here. Let me turn it back on while I use Rob's. Okay, I think I'm back on.
Could always share.
I was saying that every time we try to go to Key West, something happens. Either my mic is off or we have some breaking news, and we haven't been able to talk to Jawan Strader.
Yeah, Jawan, I had to cut you off. We were covering the tornado warnings, but I want you to pick up your report because you guys are still waiting for the brunt of this thing to hit.
Yes, that's right, Rob, and believe me, I understand because, of course, those tornado warnings are indeed very important. Here on Duval Street, of course, things have calmed down just a little bit. Again, they continue to pick up. We continue to feel those wind gusts from time to time. They continue to kick up. And if you take a look behind me, you can still see that, of course, it is raining, the rain coming in at that angle. And then all of a sudden, we'll just feel a very strong wind gust here. Now, I wanted to point out that as far as power is concerned, this according to Key West Power and Light, that 3,500 people are without power here, including us here at the hotel at the La Concha. We're without power as well, and we expected that. So just wanted to get that out there. A lot of people are without power. There was a transformer explosion, and here we go again with that wind gust. There was a transformer explosion here from one of the palm fronds that fell on one of the power lines, and of course that caused one of the power outages. But again, that wind, like I said, starting to pick up. And Rob, according to city officials, they believe that the toughest part of the storm is going to hit between 1 and 4 o'clock, and they believe after that it will be more like tropical conditions. That's according to Michael Haskins and from that EOC meeting that they went to. Of course, Brian Norcross is our expert, so I just follow Brian, but that's what they're expecting here. As far as the storm surge is concerned, though, closer to the water, and Brian mentioned this earlier, closer to the water, it is much different from where we're at because we're inland. I did file a report from that. I'm sure you guys will see it a little bit later. But Ralph Murciano and myself, we couldn't believe what we're seeing over by the water as the winds continue to pick up. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. It's the White Street Pier, and the area was flooded. There was a lot of flood water over the pier, and it was just incredible. The waves crashing very high from that storm surge, and as well as the southernmost point as well. Maggie, you asked me a question the first time you came to me almost an hour ago, and that was about southernmost point, and as far as if it was going to be underwater, because according to the first report I did a few hours ago, it was not. We went by the southernmost point, and that area is, of course, starting to pick up a lot of water, a lot of flooding over there, and, of course, a lot of spectators over there as well because of the waves. And, of course, there are a lot of people here in Key West that are taking a nonchalant approach to this storm, even though it's something that we should all take very seriously. Reporting live from Key West, Jawan Strader. Now back to you in the studio.
Jawan, go ahead.
I was just going to tell you, Jawan, that rough period between 1 and 4 that your friend there estimated is in keeping with what Brian said. Mm-hmm. So all the forecasters are agreeing that Key West has yet to see the worst of this.
I just wondered, Jawan, if you said some people are taking it nonchalant, but if everybody realizes how this storm took the best possible track that was in there, that was called for by the Weather Service.
That is true, Rob. It did take the best possible track. I'm telling a lot of people, everybody keeps on asking me, staying at the La Concha, could you give me more of an update? Could you tell me what's going on? One guy said he and his family went ahead, got scared, and decided to finally evacuate. They didn't have anywhere to go, so they came over here to the hotel. But again, 50% of the residents here in Key West did indeed evacuate. So we have to give kudos to the city officials and to those folks who decided to evacuate, because again, they're taking this very seriously, many because of what they saw in New Orleans in Hurricane Katrina. And what's even more scarier as we continue to listen to Brian Norcross is to understand what this thing is going to do, what Rita is going to do once it gets off in the Gulf, is that we could see another Katrina, which could slam Texas or Louisiana. We know this thing is very powerful and is only going to continue to grow.
It's a scary scenario, no doubt about it. While we have those people watching and listening to us who did evacuate, we can't applaud that enough, because I'm worried now that people will think, you see, I went through all the trouble of evacuating and then this thing didn't even hit us hard. Next time I'm not leaving. Let's remember that it did stay within the cone, and as Brian was telling us yesterday, that the odds of it going one place in the cone versus another are equal. So it could have just as likely slammed the Keys, and that's what you have to keep in mind when you're thinking about whether or not to evacuate.
That is true, Maggie. And what's interesting, and you remember with Hurricane Katrina, well, they sent me up north because we thought it was going to take that northerly track, and we thought it was going to hit Stewart area. And sure enough, it didn't. It took that, boom, that little jog south, and all of a sudden, a lot of people were caught off guard. And so, like you said, we have to applaud those who decided to evacuate. And you never know, you just never know what path, because of course, it's that cone. There could be any type of error. You never know exactly what track this hurricane is going to take.
Well, we just found out that the president has declared an emergency exists in the state of Florida, and that opens up the door to federal aid to supplement the state and local response effort. We've seen flooding north of you, Jawan, in the Middle Keys area from that storm surge, but apparently you said you checked out the southernmost point and other areas around Key West, and so far you haven't seen anything like we saw up there, which was about, between a foot to 2 feet of water in some places.
Yeah, that is true, Rob, because here in Key West, the biggest area, of course, southernmost point. Right there, southernmost point, that area is always underwater when a strong storm comes through here. And I'm going to go ahead and move out the way and continue to talk, guys, just so you can kind of see what's going on. And Ralph will go ahead and show you some pictures here. But getting back to that flooding issue, Rob, that you just talked about, the southernmost point, as we passed by there a short time ago, we did notice that there's a lot of water there, and the area is starting to flood, but nothing like we've been seeing, like I've been hearing up north. Nothing like we've been hearing and been seeing as far as roads being washed out and everything else. Now, as far as the White Street Pier, hopefully you guys will be able to get to that video that we shot a little earlier, because it's amazing pictures on the White Street Pier, just showing the waves crashing. Not just that, but showing that the pier is, parts of the pier is underwater, and there are also some damage to that pier as well. So some amazing pictures. But again, Rob, I wanted to point out that, again, 3,500 people are without power here in Key West. So I wanted to make that note. But again, I want to applaud all those people who did decide to evacuate. We do understand there are a lot of Key West diehards that don't believe in doing anything unless it's a stronger hurricane, but we must applaud them.
Like
Rob?
that guy behind you, one of those diehards, Jawan. But you're right, we join you in applauding the ones who did leave. Thank you.
A plastic bag and a bicycle, and he's out there, and we keep telling people how dangerous that can be. We're going to go back over to Brian Norcross. More news on that tornado warning, Brian?
Well, the tornado warning in Broward has expired now. They just put out an announcement on that, although we still have a pretty good band of weather that's going to move into North Dade and Broward. That's still one of those outer bands. And now that we've passed the time of expiration for the tornado warning for the Upper Keys, but we haven't gotten the absolute notice is expired yet. So still beware, because we can see a very strong band there between Alamorada and Key Largo. And also, just one other note from the Severe Storms Prediction Center out in Norman, Oklahoma, saying that the conditions appear ripe over the metropolitan Miami-Fort Lauderdale area for tornadoes to possibly continue in these outer bands here through the afternoon. So we will continue to watch that possibility. They put that out, saying they're going to extend the tornado watch. That's in effect. We'll see you back here in a few minutes.
All right, Brian, thank you very much. We have been looking at this picture for a while now, Haulover Beach, where the waves have been kicking up and people are actually standing on that jetty. We only saw one person out there before. Now it seems like a crowd has gathered there.
It sure does. Robin Kish is there on the beach. Robin?
Yeah, look at the dramatic pictures that photojournalist David Agadello is getting right there. You see the waves crashing against the jetty here at Haulover Beach Inlet, and there it goes again. It's amazing. The people are just wandering out there, and really is not a safe place to be right now. We actually couldn't come up for a while there because there was so much lightning in the area. We were being pounded by rain, and that last rain band has passed. We're still getting a little bit of rain, but nothing like we were before. But I will tell you, Sunrise Police, rather Surfside Police, were out here, and one of the officers told me that there were 3 surfers who had to be rescued because of conditions out there being so dangerous. And we've seen a number of surfers coming out here throughout the afternoon surveying the water. Some of them have decided not to go in because it's so choppy and because it's so dangerous, which is a wise move, especially considering there were a couple of people who needed to be helped out of the water. But as you can see, there's been a steady stream of people who walked out the jetty on the opposite side, that's the Bal Harbor side of the inlet, just to see what Mother Nature is doing out there. I guess people are getting a little bit of cabin fever, but really it's not a good time to be checking this out. I mean, we are showing you what the conditions are like here, and probably the best way to watch this is safe inside, because at a moment's notice, the weather conditions are changing. We're fortunate enough to be privy to Brian's information and his knowledge, and also see some of the radar information, so we know when the bands are coming. But, you know, for people who are coming out here, a lot of them are out here in shorts and bathing suits, flip-flops, you know, going out to the beach. And even though there are Miami-Dade Park rangers who are, or officials who are patrolling this area, and this park is closed today, people continue to come out to survey what's going on at the beach.
CBS 4's Robin Kish out there on Haulover Beach, providing us with some amazing pictures from you and your crew. Robin, look at that one as those waves keep coming in. We'll check back in with Robin in a little bit and find out more about what's going on there. It's just amazing to me, Maggie. My mind is going in front of me right now as I'm speaking, but thinking about what has been happening down in the Middle Keys as far as that storm surge, and to realize how far away Hurricane Rita is, and yet still kicking up that kind of surf out there.
All the way up to northern Miami-Dade, feeling the effects of Rita, and all the way down to Cuba. Let's go to Beatrice Canals. She's at the breaking news desk with some new pictures out of the island. Beatrice.
That's right, Maggie and Rob. As you take a look at those pictures, we're showing you of what we're experiencing here in Cuba. We're getting pictures out of the island as well, and they are feeling the effects of Hurricane Rita. If you take a look there, this is El Malecón, where, as you can see, the wind is really kicking up there. The seawall being pounded by rough seas, the huge waves crashing right onto Malecón Avenue in the capital. Crews in that area are very busy. They are clearing drains in anticipation of what could be some flooding courtesy of Hurricane Rita. As far as evacuations, we're told 58,000 people have been evacuated from low-lying areas along the northern coast of Cuba. And fishermen there took the necessary precautions in some areas. They actually managed to bring their boats onto dry land all along the cobblestone streets of La Habana Vieja, or Old Havana, just to make sure that their vessels would be safe. So that is the situation in Cuba. Keep in mind, as you take a look at the radar image we're showing you to the left of your screen, that Hurricane Rita in Cuba, they're actually feeling the southern effects, or the southern outer bands of Hurricane Rita, which is not considered the worst part of the storm. So that is good news for the folks in Cuba. We'll keep a close eye on the satellites tonight and bring you any new pictures out of Cuba as soon as they show up. In the newsroom, Beatrice Canals, CBS 4 News.
Thank you, Beatrice. We see that famous Malecón, that famous seawall, holding up just fine as the surf pounds it out there in Havana. But here, locally in the Middle Keys, there's a scene in Isla Morada that stays in my mind, of a pier that just proved too weak for that storm surge.
Yeah, CBS 4's Shomari Stone was there and filed this report.
Right now, I'm here on the pier in Isla Morada. We are north of the 7 Mile Bridge. Key West is further down. We're in what people call the Middle Keys. And as you can see, the waves keep pounding here. And what's interesting is that if you look over here, my photographer Danny I can show you, I was standing here this morning. I was doing live shots, and the water is now coming in. Look at this storm surge. Lift the camera up. We got to get out of here. Go back, go back. Go up. Okay, that's good, right here. Wait, don't, hold. Okay, you got the camera. Be careful, Danny. Now, as you can see, the water is now going up into this area. And sorry about falls over there. Those waves are very powerful. Now, this storm surge is serious because the good thing is that a lot of these people evacuated. There were a lot of tourists here at the Islander Resort, but many of them evacuated. They got out of here. But you know what's interesting? There's some mobile home residents that are near here, and they did not evacuate. Some of them said, we're not going anywhere. And this water continues to move inland. Now, let me just show you. You can just see that I'm in the water, and earlier, I could stand in this, but now, the water's here. I mean, look at this volleyball court. Look at that. Show the volleyball. So look at that volleyball net. I wonder if the water's gonna get that high. I doubt it, but I tell you what, this is definitely serious.
Shamari Stone reporting from Islamorada, where the water moved in quickly.
We have some new information from Weather Control, another warning. Brian?
Yes, we have another tornado warning now just issued for the Upper Keys. Let me just getting the radar oriented here so I can show it to you. There it is, same general area, same line actually, and this is the cell right there, just offshore now, right between Key Largo and Islamorada. Tornado warning just issued by the National Weather Service in Key West for that cell right there. Now it's going to move over very quickly, so this is going to be over in another 15 minutes or so. But if you're in the area between Key Largo and Islamorada, you stay indoors on the lowest level of your house, away from the windows, until this storm cell moves over into Florida Bay. Now here you see much lighter looking weather downstream, so this may be the last one of those there for a while. Now in Miami-Dade County, things have calmed down dramatically. You can see there's a good cell down here in extreme South Dade, down right by the Homestead Air Reserve Station. But that's about it. Otherwise, generally light rain. Now let's check on Broward County, where the weather has been very strong here lately, and it looks like the only real strong cell left is just about to exit into the Everglades, and it's up here by Tamarack, between Tamarack and Sunrise and Lauderhill in that area. So traveling up the Sawgrass Expressway, this is up at Commercial Boulevard here, and we're down at Sunrise here, Oakland Park here, McNabb Road in there. So in the area, McNabb Road and Oakland Park and the Sawgrass Expressway, still a very strong cell, but quickly now moving on off to the northwest into the Everglades, rotating around the Hurricane Rita, and Hurricane Rita looking ever more impressive. Now, we still think that the biggest threat, just wanted to check that one more time, and still right near the Keys there. So again, be very careful between Key Largo and Islamorada. Stay inside if you're still there in the Keys. Now on the radar, a wide view of the radar, here we can see the storm as it rotates on off to the west, and we can see the eye perhaps trying to get a little bit smaller in size, but it's right to the south, or maybe even just passing south of Key West. So this is the point that we're thinking that the storm surge would be the strongest here in the lower Keys. And this is where everyone in the lower Keys on the Atlantic side needs to stay away from the water. Based on what we saw earlier, with a weaker hurricane, this storm has the potential now of producing significant storm surge, perhaps up to 6 feet in the lower Keys as it moves on by, and that's going to be there for quite some time. Until the storm gets well to the west of Key West, that storm surge will continue to be a problem all along here, from Key West on up to Marathon. All right, welcome viewers from UPN. This is continuing coverage on CBS 4 of the Hurricane Rita's transit through the Straits of Florida and on across into the Gulf of Mexico. A stronger storm than it was this morning. Winds up now to 100 miles per hour. And the biggest threat at the moment is the storm surge from Key West on up into the Middle Keys, and also the occasional tornadoes that are occurring. Tornado warning in effect right now for the Upper Keys between Islamorada and Key Largo. The tornado warning that we had for Broward within the last hour has expired. Now, the latest numbers from an hour ago from Hurricane Rita, 23.9, 81.7, 100-mile-an-hour winds now, and some indication that the storm is continuing the strengthening cycle, moving to the west at 15, and the pressure, according to the hurricane hunters, has dropped to 976 millibars, and of course that makes it a Category 2 hurricane. Now, if you can see the track, if you're watching on television, you can see the track. that is about the track that we talked about last night as being the best possible scenario for a track. The storm has threaded the needle between Key West and Cuba, far enough from Key West and far enough from Cuba to keep the worst of the weather offshore. But still, that doesn't mean that there's not going to be consequences for having this Category 2 hurricane in our vicinity. But in any case, it is moving on off to the west, and it will continue to do that, and it looks very clear now that the storm will not make landfall in either Cuba or in Florida, and it will go on off to the west. I'm going to get the view on the Key West radar so we can locate exactly where the eye wall is. Here we're using the radar for the tornadoes. That's what it takes me just a moment. Here now let's take a look at the radar and confirm that the strongest cells, which are right around the eye, are going to stay about 30 miles south of Key West. So the main threat in the lower Keys is going to be from storm surge being pushed up on the back side of the storm, as we've already seen it closing the overseas highway in many places in the upper and middle Keys, and that will no doubt be a problem in the lower Keys as well as the storm continues to move off to the west. The north wind pushing the water toward Havana, and strong gusty winds there as well, so they will experience some degree of storm surge along the Malecon in Havana as well as in the lower Keys. Now let's look at the future track of Hurricane Rita moving off into the Gulf. By this evening, it will have moved well past Key West, although the weather will still not be good in the Keys, only slowly improving. Then through the day tomorrow, moving well away, and then our weather all throughout South Florida should improve. But unfortunately, the computers are now indicating a very strong hurricane developing, a Hurricane Katrina type hurricane developing in the center of the Gulf of Mexico and then coming ashore somewhere on the western Gulf Coast, perhaps in Texas or perhaps in Louisiana. So let's stop there for our viewers on UPN 33 and send you back to CBS programming, or send you back to regular UPN programming, and we'll continue here on CBS 4.
Brian, thank you for that update on Hurricane Rita, a Category 2 storm moving through the Florida Straits. We're feeling the effects. They're feeling it as far south as Cuba and as far north as Miami-Dade and Broward County. And one of those spots is Biscayne National Park, where, like many other points in South Florida, the concern is the storm surge and the flooding.
We've seen flooding here in the past with past hurricanes that we have covered. Let's go to CBS 4's Jill Martin. Sorry about that, I turned on my microphone. Jill Martin is standing by with more for us. Jill?
All right, well, here's the situation. We just arrived here at Biscayne Park, and this is the road behind me that leads to the marina. As you can see, it's totally flooded. When we got here, there were a bunch of concerned boat owners because the marina, we're told, is about 150 to 200 yards from here, and the canal is just 50 miles to my right. So between the storm surge and the extremely high tide, it has caused extreme flooding on this road, which many of the boat owners tell me has never happened here. I want to bring Oscar in right now. He's one of the concerned boat owners here because we've only seen one truck. We think you tried to get through to get to your boat, but we saw one truck go through the 18 inches of water at some point. I don't want to bring you in the water, but let me bring you in a little bit. Oscar, tell us what you've seen here today and if you've ever seen it before.
No, I never seen this before. When I came in, the water was about, you can see the mark on that red column right there. It's about 12 inches higher than what it is right now, about 45 minutes ago. The water eventually will recede. It's receding right now. I think I'll be able to get into the marina in about 15 minutes.
Have you heard anything about your boat? Is there anyone in there that's given you any updates?
A couple of guys told me that my boat was okay, but I want to see it myself.
What happened when you tried to drive through? Because I saw that you were trying to go through a little bit and you weren't able to get through.
My truck is high, but even with my truck, I couldn't cross. It was too high. The water level was too high.
All right, I see a lot of concerned boat owners here. Have you had from any of the prior hurricanes? We had Katrina. Was there any boat damage to this area? And did you see any flooding like this when Katrina came through?
Never. For the last 4 years, I've never seen damage or any boat. Small damage, like Catherine produced small damage on the canopies and stuff like that, but no heavy damage.
And just so people know, here in Homestead, we've received a little bit of rain. We haven't been here for that long, but we received one strong surge of heavy downpour. But what have you felt with the rain here recently?
It wasn't raining that much, but this is a result of a little storm surge, 3 or 4 feet storm surge on the bay. That's why we have overflow to the canal here.
Well, you're going to try to brave this, and you're going to take us through in a little bit to try to check out your boat, right? How long do you think it'll be until we make that journey?
Let's wait about 15 to 20 minutes. I think we'll be able to make it.
Okay, I think we have a lot of concern. Thank you, Oscar, and we'll be joining you in a minute. I think we have a lot of concerned boat owners here, but I'm happy to report that's really the most severe incident I can report from here. People are just really concerned about their boats. On the ride here, we passed through Pinecrest, we passed through different areas, and it really looked like business as usual. Not that many cars on the road. It looked like a Sunday afternoon and a rainy day, and everybody was, just at home chilling out. But besides that, this is the first thing we've seen as a result of Rita. So that's the story from here. We're going to drive through, go check out the boats and the marina, and then we'll get back to you.
All right, CBS 4's Jill Martin reporting from Biscayne National Park. This is a live picture here from Haulover Beach, where we've been watching the surf kick up, and Jill was talking about the boaters being concerned because lately we have seen the extremely high tides, and so adding the storm to it has made things doubly worse.
We see a lifeguard vehicle on duty now, and with good reason. There were a bunch of people standing out on the jetty as the surf was kicking up. Robin Kish joins us now live, and I see him telling people to get out of the way, Robin.
We're watching the drama unfold. Since we came to you last, there's been at least 10 surfers to enter the water, bringing their surfboards, and now they're being told by the lifeguard clearly that this is not a safe place to be surfing. In fact, we had heard from a Surfside police officer that there were 3 surfers earlier in the day who had to be rescued because of the dangerous conditions. And I spoke with a couple of these guys who did not want to go on camera. They said that they were going to take their chances. They look forward to weather like this all year, and they say that they can handle it. So clearly there's disagreement amongst the surfers and those people who are trying to keep them safe as to the best measures to take under these conditions. It looks like they've been advised of the conditions here, and now it's up to them to decide how they're going to proceed from here. But there's been a heavy patrol in this area at Haulover Beach. We're right by the jetty and the inlet. We've been seeing some dramatic video of the waves crashing against the rocks here. So we'll see what happens with these guys, whether they decide to stick it out. You see that there are surfers in the water as we speak. I was told by one man who says he's a veteran surfer that he's experienced wave conditions much higher than this around the world, and he took the day off of work and really doesn't want his boss seeing that he's here today, but he's going to go in, he says, and enjoy. So they're really at their own risk. Clearly it's a non-swimming day because there are rip currents out there. The red flags were flying yesterday. It's really dangerous conditions. So we'll see what happens. We're going to stand by. In the meantime, not just surfers coming out here, but onlookers who are trying to break the monotony. There are people who have the day off from work, from school, and they want to see exactly what Mother Nature has to offer. And I have with me now a woman, Patricia Nicolau, who was working at Aventura Mall, but the mall's closed today, right?
Yes, it's closed today.
So what did you decide to do?
Well, sat around the house all day, and then finally, after a while, when it stopped raining a little bit, we decided to get out, come to the beach, see how the waves were, and then I see all these crazy people actually trying to go in the water. We're just standing, looking. It's the wind and the rain is really hard, though.
You brought something with you to...
Oh, yeah, I brought a camera. It's a camera phone, and we can take videos and everything. So we took pictures and videos of the waves and the wind and how the trees are blowing just to show the intensity of the wind.
What do you think of all that you see out here, and was it worthwhile?
Yeah, it was. I think you don't think it's as bad when they say it's just a storm, and when you look on the news and you see where it's heading, like it's far away and it's not really on top of us, but the aftermath or like the winds around it, it's really hitting hard.
So you're not going to hang out here for too long, are you?
No, we're going to get out now. We're going to go back in the car and go somewhere safer.
You mentioned to watch a movie inside.
Yeah, probably go rent a movie and watch one at home. But now we can take advantage of the power still on.
Well, it sounds like a great idea. Yeah. Enjoy. Thank you for speaking with us. It was very nice meeting you.
You too.
Bye-bye. So there you have one onlooker's perspective, and as we look out, there are more people who are arriving, young and old. We spoke with kids and adults, fathers of children who just had the day off of school, and the fathers are former surfers, and we're checking out the scene here. Really a lot more activity out here today than we saw yesterday. And yesterday we were wondering, where is everyone? Usually you see a lot more people, but the waves were considerably smaller than they are today. Really, we're seeing much more dramatic waves hitting the jetty than we did yesterday. So I think that is definitely the draw for the surfers and for the onlookers for that matter. I also wanted to mention, we were talking about flooding earlier, and you know, while we're looking at the pictures of these amazing waves crashing against the rocks, just across A1A to the west, we stopped at the Haulover Marine Center where we had been yesterday, and the entire parking lot is underwater. The boat ramps, you can't see them anymore. They're totally submerged, which they say often happens in high tide during the fall, but they've never seen anything like this. So